Hello, everybody. Welcome inside the Fantasy Hut. We're here for our fourth football podcast of the season. The league member Alex Mason is back. It's been a while since he's been on the show. We've done one since we did one together a couple weeks ago. How you feeling, Alex?
Good. Glad to be back, Commish. Hope everyone could see the logo behind our commissioner's big head over here. The league, proud members. Let's start the show.
Yeah, I'm the league commissioner, David Kiarsis. We're here to. We got 3 weeks to go until the playoffs. But we thought it'd be a good opportunity to kind of look back at the season and talk about some things that have gone down. That have, both on the real field and on the virtual field in the league. Something we haven't touched on yet is the injuries that have kind of taken the NFL by storm. There's been a number of very key injuries for some playoff contending teams, especially at the quarterback position. I think none bigger than Aaron Rodgers fracturing his collarbone 2 weeks ago. Green Bay was in first place in the NFC North. They're now in trouble. They went to Seneca Wallace. Now going to Scott Tolzien this week, starting against the Giants. Thoughts on the Aaron Rodgers injury and what that means for the Green Bay Packers moving forward?
Well, talk about, first of all, the game that it happened in. That was a swing game, if you think about it. They were playing the Bears. They were either could have given themselves a 2-game lead, or what happened was they ended up with a 3-way tie atop the division with those two teams and the Lions. And now it's just been getting worse and worse. They just signed noodle-armed Matt Flynn to be their backup quarterback. Who knows what he's going to do? I mean, I know he had the big game a few years ago in 2011, but he was throwing to guys like Driver, Jennings, Finley, Nelson. I'm not sure who the running back was. Was it Ryan Grant then? But either way, the guy had weapons. They were strictly a passing team. So, I mean, this is big, and I think this really hurts the Packers' chances of making the playoffs. The Bears are playing well, Lions are playing well. Wild card's not up for grabs. You got the 49ers, you got the Panthers all fighting for that spot. And it's pretty bad timing, I think, for the Packers. I don't think it's going to be their year to make the playoffs because of this.
Yeah, another team in that division that's had to battle some quarterback injuries, the Chicago Bears. Jay Cutler went down a couple weeks ago with a groin injury, started last week and actually injured his ankle. They've gone to Josh McCown, who's looked good in spot start duty, whether that's Mark Trestman's system or not. Thoughts on Chicago and their ability to maybe get back in the hunt in the NFC North now, game behind the Detroit Lions?
Oh, get back in. I don't think you need to say get back. They're definitely in. And I can kind of go back to what I just said about Matt Flynn and his success. Who has better weapons to throw to than the quarterback of the Bears? I mean, Jeffrey, Marshall, Bennett, and Forte out of the backfield. They could be hard-pressed to find a team with four options to throw to in the entire league. I mean, I can't think of one off the top of my head. It reminds me of those 2011 Packers with all those weapons. So I think they're in a great situation. The only thing that concerns me with them is the defense. But I think quarterback-wise, McCown has proven he can carry the mail. Cutler's obviously better, but I don't think they'll suffer with either guy. Yeah. Maybe come playoff time, you have 2 minutes left. You got to ask your quarterback to win a game for you. Yeah. Then you might be concerned, is McCown the guy? But in the short term, I think they'll be fine without Cutler.
Yeah, that Monday night game we talked about, McCown got the start and played great. Rodgers went down, obviously, so that may have affected the outcome, but the Bears were able to pull out a win there. And then in the game that Cutler went down this past weekend against the Lions, McCown came in, led him down the field for what could have been the game-tying touchdown. They weren't able to get the 2-point conversion and fell short. Did
you see that play call that they happened to call? They rolled out. They basically cut the field in half, and luckily got a penalty. And then they ran the ball into Nick Fairley. You guys got his own zip code. They blew the opportunity to send that game into overtime.
I never liked the 4th and 1 HB dive call or the goal line HB dive call. I think it's just too predictable. Another key injury that doesn't seem to be affecting a team that much is Michael Vick and the Philadelphia Eagles. Nick Foles has been unbelievable. Hasn't thrown an interception through 7 touchdowns 2 weeks ago against the Raiders. That'll be interesting to see what happens. The Eagles are on bye next week, and you might assume that Michael Vick will be ready to go. What do the Eagles do there? Do they stay with the hot hand and Foles, or do they go back to their Week 1 starter and Michael Vick?
I don't see how you make a change. They're winning games. They're fighting for, albeit a very weak division crown, which does award you a playoff berth. It's almost like the NL West of a couple years ago in baseball, where the team had to make the playoffs by default. but I don't see how you make a change. I mean, who knows if Vic is if he's got that explosive play in him anymore. I mean, his hamstring pops every time he seems to sprint. This guy Foles is slinging the ball over the yard. He's throwing touchdowns. He's not turning it over. He's looking like Peyton Manning out there. 16 touchdowns, no turnovers. That's how Peyton Manning started this year. I don't see how you make a change. Sad for Vic. I've always been very happy, seeing him turn his life around, come back, get his career started again. So, I root for guys like that. But I don't think he's getting his job back, and I don't think the Eagles need to give it back to him. I think they're in a good spot.
Yeah, this similar argument could be made to the Chicago situation that it might just be a system thing, and Nick Foles seems to fit the system well. Some other notable quarterback injuries: Matt Schaub, Texans just having a miserable season. Schaub got injured a couple weeks ago, and the reins were given to Case Keenum, who's played well, and doesn't look like Schaub is going to be playing again this year. That's a lost season, though, as I said. Sam Bradford tore his ACL for the Rams.
Very sad. He was actually having a good year.
Yeah,
I've never been a big fan of his talents, but it seemed like he turned a page this year. Maybe another year under Jeff Fisher has helped him. Just unfortunate timing for him.
Yeah, and they're 4-5, kind of there for the second wild card spot, but with Kellen Clemens at quarterback, I don't know if they're going to have enough to make a run here late in the season.
They need to get a receiver.
Yeah.
Tavon Austin, I think he's like one of those slot guys. They need a big playmaker.
Something you might know about and have a good opinion about is EJ Manuel. He looked promising to start the season, went down with a knee injury, came back last week for his first game after missing a good amount of time. Thoughts on Manuel's injury, how he looked maybe last week, if you caught a little bit about that game, and thoughts for him moving, trying to improve the rest of the season.
I actually didn't get a chance to watch this game. From what I've read and heard, he looked terrible. But it's understandable. He was out about 4 to 6 weeks. What concerns me about him is he seems to have that Michael Vick RG3 syndrome, or cut from that cloth, as opposed to the Colin Kaepernick Russell Wilson cloth. What I mean by that is Kaepernick and Wilson, they don't take hits. They're smart. They get down. They get out of bounds. Manuel, the play he got hurt on, could have easily ran out of bounds.
Yeah.
Instead, he fought for a few yards, took a shot to the knee. Those are things we've seen with Vic and RG3. So I hope he learns his lesson this time and realizes that it's long term. You're not here for a couple of years. We drafted you in the first round. I say we because I'm a big Bills fan, but I think he needs to learn and become more of a cerebral quarterback. I mean, I'm still not sold on the guy.
Yeah.
He was limited to reading half the field in college. I'm not sure if he can go through a full progression. We'll see.
And then another quarterback who can't seem to stay healthy is Jake Locker. He's now lost for the season with a foot injury. Tennessee at times has looked good this year. They started hot, slumped a little bit. Was a very winnable game on Thursday. Could have got back into the division race. I think Locker's injury might seal their fate for their season. So some injuries, some other injuries at other positions that we're going to talk about that maybe, obviously, some of these quarterback injuries have affected some teams in the league, but we're going to transition to some other positions and talk about, one of the bigger injuries this year was Julio Jones. He went down with a foot injury. Am I correct?
Yeah.
A re-injury of the injury he came into the NFL with out of Alabama. Obviously, he was a member of Mace's Aces, the 10th overall pick. Thoughts on the Julio Jones injury and kind of what that's done to your team?
Well, it almost felt like getting dumped by your girlfriend. I just wanted to cry, and I just wanted to crawl up into a ball and not say a word. I thought my season was over. I had invested so much in this season, and in particular just targeted Julio Jones. He was having a monster start to the year. Even if you look at the rankings now, he's still a top 25 guy. He hasn't played in 5 weeks. It's crazy. I mean, it's just, luckily I was able to make some moves in the offseason. So I still have a solid squad. Without him, I was able to overcome that loss. But, it hurts. If I had him now, I would, not to be biased, try to be objective when I talk about these things, but I don't see how you couldn't make me the favorite if I still had Julio Jones going out there every week for me. But, it's fantasy football. It's it's part of the game. It sucks for me. It's better for everyone else, I guess. But yeah, that's probably been the biggest key injury. I mean, he's the only first-round draft pick to have a major season-ending injury this year, right?
And it obviously speaks to the depth of your receiving core that you've been able to overcome that injury in Atlanta. since he's been injured, since he went down, Atlanta's offense has just looked terrible. So another big injury was Doug Martin. He was obviously one of the valuable keepers coming into the season, a fifth-round pick. Everybody had high hopes for him in redraft leagues. He was going second overall in a lot of those leagues. He tore his labrum. He's out for the season. He was on RG three-way after acquiring him in the offseason. Traded him to Balso Hard U, and which really left him thin at running back. Thoughts on Doug Martin and his disappointing season?
Well, that's exactly what it was. Even before the injury, I mean, I think this guy was averaging less than 3 yards a carry, or low threes, if that. I mean, terrible team. Seems like a cancerous organization. Almost feel bad for the guy. And I always kind of questioned his talent because if you remember him last year, I actually drafted him last year, and for the first 5 or 6 weeks he didn't produce, and then all of a sudden he had this 50-point game. I believe he was on. I traded him to you, and I mean that was just kind of a symbol of my season, the way things were going. I didn't have a good year. Traded a player who ended up blowing up as soon as he left my roster, but I'm just not totally sold that this guy is a consistent factor back, like an Adrian Peterson, like a LaShawn McCoy, or a Matt Forte or Jamal Charles. I don't think he's like that, and especially on the team he's on. I mean, the reason those other guys are successful is there's other options. I mean, Peterson's just a beast, but those other guys, they need the defense. They can't put all their focus on just one guy. And I don't think Doug Martin is that type of Adrian Peterson guy where you can still put 13 guys in the box and he's still going to rush for 100 yards. So
that's why I was selling him in the season or in the off season, was just because of the team he's on. And even when he had good games last year, other than the big Oakland game, I just felt like I was grabbing for points because the offense just wasn't moving the ball, and it was hard for him to have good games. So definitely why I sold him. Another big injury that I think is had a big effect on one of our top teams is Reggie Wayne. The Colts offense just looks completely different without him, and the Sorge already had a relatively weak receiving core. It loses its number one receiver. It's one of its keepers. Thoughts on the Reggie Wayne injury and what that's done to the Sorge?
Well, that combined with losing Blackman for the year, I mean, that guy, I guess he's channeling his inner Ricky Williams. He just wants to smoke weed and just hang out. I guess Ricky was doing it a little smarter than he was. But, I mean, the 2 top 20 guys to lose like that, it's tough. I mean, the kid's lucky he's got a solid running back core. This kid, he's one injury away from being done, though.
Yeah,
he has already no depth.
Yeah, the buys are killing him.
But just sad to see Reggie Wayne, one of the good players in the league. I mean, I'm not going to say he's a good guy. I don't know him at all, but from the U.
Seems like it. Seems like it, though, yeah.
Gotta love the guys from the U. I always, I'm a big Miami University fan.
And we've talked about the Rodgers injury. I think that's pretty much sealed Sam Dees's fate. He started out 2-0, lost 5 in a row, squeaked out a win in week 8 against RG three-way. But now without Rodgers, I just don't see any way how it stays in the playoff picture. It's on the outside looking in, and I just don't see it getting in. And then a big injury for me was Randall Cobb. The week after I made my big 3-for-1 trade for Bryant, I was in a position where I needed my stars to play like stars, and I lost one of my stars for even if he comes back, it's essentially the entire fantasy season. That one hurt because I love Cobb. He's pretty much my player forever, or for his entire career. So that one obviously hurt and puts me in a bind to fill flex spots with waiver wire players, which I've been doing for the past couple of weeks.
Talk about the receiving core you have moving forward, though. Keepers: AJ Green, Des Bryant, Randall.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one thing that allows me to sleep at night is thinking about the future, and I got that.
Solid.
I got those guys for at least 4 or 5 years. So hopefully that's a title window that I gotta have to take advantage of. So now some non-injury related disappointments.
Can I just say one thing about that Cobb injury, though? I think it's important to notice how the injury happened on a player going low on a receiver. I just get scared that this is what we're going to see more of because they don't want to get fined for these helmet-to-helmet defenseless receiver hits. Instead, they target the knees, which, is fine. It's kind of how you're taught to tackle, but, I just hope we don't see more of these bad injuries because, who's to say he's the same when he comes back?
Yeah,
that's.
I wrote about this on my website. The Dustin Keller injury. in the preseason, I think it was, speaks to this, where the league is cracking down on helmet-to-helmet hits, emphasizing player safety, which has led to a lot of low hits. And Brandon Mayweather recently got suspended and fined for multiple head-to-head hits, and he came out and basically said, hey, I'm going to hit low and I'm going to tear ACLs, and that's what you got to do now. And it's just the NFL. The whole concussion lawsuit is just a big red flag for where the NFL is going. The legal contact penalty has made it essentially flag football. The NFL is just changing in ways that us growing up we're not used to, and who knows what kind of the long-term effect will be on the league. But yeah, so some non-injury related disappointments has been just the running back position as a whole. I have a list here of nine running backs selected in the first 5 rounds, a couple of keepers that have just been utter disappointments. I think a great place to start is Ray Rice. I selected him number 7 overall, traded him to 40s, and the guy has just done nothing. He's been ineffective. His yards per carry is under 3. Just hasn't done anything.
Just awful. I mean, I think he had one big game week 1. Since then, I think he has 1-2 touchdown game. Other than that, it's pretty much single digits, maybe like 11, 12 points. Not what you're paying for when you're getting a first-round pick. This kind of goes to my theory of why I was so wide receiver focused in my draft. I had 3 of the first 11 picks, if you remember, and I took 3 wide receivers because this is kind of what I expect out of this position. The shelf life is very short. I think someone like Ray Rice. The next guy we're going to talk about is the opposite. But think about 3 years of a grueling workload coming off the Super Bowl run. The guy might be spent. Yeah. And with these guys, it's not gradual for running backs. They hit the wall and they're done. There's no in between. They go from superstar to released.
And he might be the biggest first-round bust if it wasn't for our next guy is Trent Richardson. Everybody was up in arms about Cleveland trading away their supposed best player, and Cleveland's right there in the division race, and Trent Richardson's getting outplayed by Donald Brown in Indianapolis.
Yeah, originally you thought, well, maybe he's not doing well because the Browns' O-line just can't block, and then now he goes to Indianapolis. You're like, well, maybe he's just not good. Maybe he's just another one of those lazy Alabama backs. Who knows? Yeah. Thankfully, Eddie Lacy's not one of those. But yeah, I don't know, man. Now it's like Indianapolis finally realized, like, this guy just doesn't have the goods. Donald Brown with 80 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. I think you saw Richardson catch some balls last week. Early, I think he had like 4 catches in like the first 5 minutes, like maybe the first 1 or 2 drives. And I feel like that was just them saying, well, he can't run between the tackles. Let's see if we get him in space. Couldn't do anything in space. I don't know.
And maybe just might speak to kind of their new offensive philosophy with Wayne down. Some other names, late second round picks. Chris Johnson, who I was surprised to see he's ranked 8th in our league at running back. He's kind of been an up and down guy. He's had some big games though, especially recently. Maurice Jones-Drew, another running back who's got a lot of miles on his tires, and he ranks 26th at running back in our league. He's been a big disappointment too. Some other ones: Stephen Ridley. Ranks 23rd, Lamar Miller 36th, Doug Martin, who we talked about, 38th out for the year, Arian Foster 19th out for the year, and then Steven Jackson, who missed a lot of time, 57th. Any of those names jump out to you as over the top disappointments, or maybe guys you expected this kind of season from?
Well, Arian Foster, that's just a injury riddled season. I didn't think he would be the number 1 guy that he'd been in the past. I didn't think he'd be this bad though. That's been a very good, effective offense the last couple of years. Even if he dropped a little bit in production, he should have been a top 10 guy at the position. I was never very high on. I thought it was very questionable for Ladarius Webb to keep Steven Jackson. I thought that was a huge mistake. Kind of glad he did, actually. But yeah, I would say Arian Foster is the most disappointing to me. And just one thing I want to say about the running backs, we talk about these rankings, but once you get out of like the top 6 or 7, the drop-off is huge. It gets ugly fast. So even if you say, oh, he's the 10th ranked running back, what is he, the 30th ranked position player besides the quarterback?
Yeah.
it's not necessarily good. So running back is very thin, and that's why Sorge, he's in a good spot. He's got those top two guys.
Best, yeah. I mean, 6 of the top guys are on 2 teams with RG3-Way and the Sorge. But yeah, the running back position has been big disappointment. But there have been some players that we keep talking about disappointments. There have been some players who have surprised this season. One coming at the running back position is Knowshon Moreno. Last season, Moreno was almost on the chopping block with the Denver Broncos. Had almost a revival at the end of the season once McGahee got hurt. Comes in this year. There was some talk about a muddled backfield, but he kind of took the reins immediately, and Peyton Manning has done wonders for Knowshon Moreno.
Yeah, I think you said it all. What else can I mean, that offense is just like, it's perfect to be a running back because there's so much focus on the passing game. Like, you got terrific receivers, you got an emerging tight end, and as long as Moreno stays healthy, I don't see how he's not a top 5 guy the rest of the way.
Yeah, he's catching a ton of balls. It's some receivers that may have gotten pubbed a little bit in the preseason. One that hasn't. There was a free agent pickup that have impressed. Keenan Allen, Josh Gordon, and Alshon Jeffrey. Jeffrey ranks 11th at the wide receiver position. He's been a stud, really a breakout sophomore campaign. Josh Gordon, who a lot of people loved in the preseason despite his 2-game suspension to start the season, he's been great. And then Keenan Allen, rookie out of California, has become the number 1 receiver in San Diego and has really had a great rookie season. Thoughts on those 3, which one kind of stands out to you the most?
Keenan Allen, I didn't even know who he was. He came out of nowhere for me. Jeffrey, we all kind of knew about him last year. He didn't quite have the production last year. I mean, a lot of it is still that one monster game he had, but he's clearly emerged as a viable wide receiver 2 at least. He might not be in the wide receiver 1 category yet, but he's definitely an every week starter. That's a good offense. They're throwing the ball. We talked about. I think he had 9 catches last week on almost 20 targets. You gotta love that. That's just who has him? Kamoli has him.
Yeah.
12th round. That's going to be a great keeper for a long time. I think. Keenan Allen. It's surprising. Especially with Phillip Rivers. We thought he was almost done.
Yeah.
Now he's got this revival. He's dumping it off to Woodhead. He's throwing it deep to Allen. He's hitting Gates across the middle. They can run the ball with Matthews when they commit to it. Yeah. Matthews has a couple of 20-carry, 100-yard games this year, so they've proven they can do that. I think they're very balanced. That's why I think this production is gonna stay true for Keenan Allen. I don't think it's a flash in the pan unless Phillip Rivers starts turning the ball over every other play again.
Yeah, they're definitely right there in the wild card picture. And then at the tight end position, Jordan Reed, someone that I picked up. Has really come onto the scene, and everybody's comparing him to Aaron Hernandez. He's been great for me.
In a good way.
Yeah, in a good way. Yeah, I guess we have to preface that. He's been great for me and kind of kept me afloat a little bit to have a player at that position when I really didn't have anybody that was any good. So, he's been a great player, and he looks like he's going to have a bright future in the NFL with the Redskins.
Another tight end, though, obviously he's been on the map since the first week, but who saw Julius Thomas before the season started, And another emerging player, wouldn't say emerging, but kind of impressed with his usage and his durability this year is Reggie Bush. He's proven to be a true running back. He's not just a get in space, make you miss guy. He's running between the tackles. He's handling the ball, 17 to 20 times a game. He's staying on the field. He's being extremely productive. He's not getting in the end zone quite as much as you'd like, but, the yards are something you can depend on. Touchdowns are tough to depend on, but you can always depend on his touches and his yardage production. I think he's been a very pleasant surprise. He was a high draft pick, mainly because the draft is thin in the early rounds. A lot of good players are kept. Mm-hmm. So, when you draft someone in the second round, you expect solid production, but still, Reggie Bush had a lot to prove, and I think he's done a good job doing that this year.
So now, obviously, playoffs 3 weeks away. Two teams, Ladarius Webb and LeSorge, have already sewed up playoff spots. Mace's Aces is on the doorstep this week. There's a scenario in which it can clinch a playoff spot today or this weekend. And then, some other teams look like they're going to be locks for playoff spots. Really, the only possible spot that looks up for grabs is the number 6 seed. So kind of we're going to throw out predictions. When I did this show by myself a couple weeks ago, I said soon to be champ was going to be a playoff team. That was obviously wrong. So
Big mistake.
Honestly, I think 8, 9, and 10 are out of it in my mind. All three soon to be champ 40 Sant D's, all 3 and 7. 40s gets Kamoli next week. Obviously, it has a tough slate. Ladarius Webb this week, RG3-way in week 13. But I think the big one is Kamoli, since it's Kamoli's one game ahead of it, and it's got Giovanni Bernard and LaShawn McCoy on bye. A game that I think it would have had to win to get back in the playoff picture that it's not going to. So I think those three are out of it. But I guess let's talk about the Western Division. The Sorge and Ladarius Webb already in the playoffs, but battling for the division title and most likely the number 1 overall seed. They meet next week. Who do you see grabbing that division crown?
Well, let me take a look at the matchup real quick. I mean, talk about an exciting divisional race. I mean, basically, wire to wire, the 2 best teams in the league in terms of record. They've been consistent scoring points. Only a couple down weeks for each of them. Kevin made a great trade for Pierre Garçon. He parted with his lover boy, Reggie Bush, but I think it was a move that had to be made. He's a little weak at flex. I mean, I'm not quite sure Ruben Randall is that dependable. Danny Woodhead is great. Tannehill, though, not so much. But you can say the same for Sorge. Roethlisberger, or I guess is Foles on the line that week. Yeah. So, Kevin catches him at a good time. I think these next 2 weeks are going to be tough for Sorge. He's playing me this week without his Cowboys. He's going to be playing next week without his Eagles. But it's really, it's a tough matchup to pick. I mean, they're the 2 best teams for a reason. They have been all year. But I'm going to go with Ladarius Webb. I think he's going to pull it out and win the division crown.
That's actually what I had thought for a while, but I looked at this matchup, and I kind of like the Sorge's matchups a little bit better. I think both teams win this week, or I think the Ladarius Webb wins this week, and the Sorge loses to Mace's Aces, which would even them up at 9 and 2. So I think this game will decide it, and I'm going with the Sorge to pull out a win and win its 2nd straight division title, which will leave Ladarius Webb as the 3 seed. The Eastern Division, I'll take this one because Mace's Aces is right in the hunt for that, obviously. Mace's Aces 6 and 4, RG3-way, also Hard U at 5 and 5, and me sitting at 4 and 6. I have a slim chance of getting back into it, as unlikely as it may be. But I think that honestly, I think Mace's Aces wins out, wins that Week 13 matchup with also Hard U, and is going to win its first division crown. And be the number 2 seed. I actually think RG3-way is going to win out as well and get the 4 seed. And, RG3 and Balso Hard U look destined for a first-round matchup, and I think that's what it's going to be, those 2 meeting up in the first round with the winner advancing to take on the Sorge. The number 6 seed likely comes down to me and Kamoli. And for Kamoli, as the Patriots go, so goes Kamoli. The Patriots next 3 weeks for the end of the season, they play Carolina, Denver, and Houston. Carolina, obviously, a somewhat daunting matchup, but Denver next week could be a shootout. Houston's defense obviously isn't what it's been. And then for me, I finished with soon-to-be champ, which I think is a win. But these next 2 weeks, I play RG3-way and Mace's Aces. I think I have to win one of those to have a shot to make the playoffs. I mean, obviously, Kamoli, we could end up with the same record, but he's got about a 50-point advantage on me, I think, now. So I could overcome that. Unlikely, though, with my waiver wire squad. So I think that the Kamoli is going to get that number 6 seed. Thoughts on that last playoff spot race?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's just it's not quite the playoff races we've seen in the past, where there was a lot of teams involved. It was early on in the season. There was almost 2 tiers set where you had about the top 4, not including Balso Hard U in that 4, and then the rest. And Balso Hard U has made, as astonishing as it may be, he's kept himself in the hunt. He's managed to put up points. He's had a few good pickups, made a few questionable trades, a few good trades. But I mean, he's definitely in it, definitely in there. I think it'll be an early exit for him once getting to the playoffs. But yeah, the top 5 are clearly going to make the playoffs, and it's just that one race with you and Kamoli. I mean, those other 3 teams are just awful, awful. there's no other way to say it. They're pitiful. I mean, 40s is okay. He's had an unfortunate year. I mean, if you look at the points against this year, like Sword just had 1566 against him. 40s is at 1816. Like,
yeah, man. The week that
talk
really
about the luck of the schedule.
the week that really killed 40s in its playoff hopes was when it put up over 200 points and lost to the Swords, who put up like 250. So that kind of sealed 40s' fate. And then maybe some quick picks for the real life. You know, we got 7 weeks left in the regular season. Who are your Super Bowl teams?
Super Bowl teams. I love me some Seattle Seahawks. Give me more Russell Wilson, baby. I love him. He's going to take them all the way. So I'm going with the Seahawks in the NFC. AFC's a little tougher, you know. I think a big thing is going to be who wins that AFC West. Who gets that home field advantage? I think the Chiefs need it more. But even if they get it, I don't see them as a serious contender. But if the Broncos manage to come out with that divisional title and that home field advantage throughout, I think they are the favorite to go to the Super Bowl. I really do. I don't see any serious contenders against them other than their own divisional rivalry. I mean, Patriots aren't what they were, although they managed to keep stringing together victories. No one in the North is a serious threat to the Patriots. And same with the South. I mean, maybe Indianapolis. I don't know if they're quite ready yet, but what a matchup that would be, huh? Andrew Luck against Peyton Manning. Yeah. That'd be something. But so I'm going to say Seattle and Denver.
Yeah, even at 9-0, the Chiefs still not getting the respect some may think they deserve. Obviously, we'll see what they're made of this weekend against the Denver Broncos. Those two teams meet 2 of the next 3 weeks. You know, I continue to say it every year that until Tom Brady's not playing, he's my pick. I think somehow the Patriots are going to get it done and get to the Super Bowl. And then I like the Saints to beat the Seahawks in the NFC title game and get back to the Super Bowl. Just that offense, I think, is gonna get it done this year and get back to the Super Bowl. So,
how about another example of how important home field is for those two teams in particular, right?
Absolutely, and they meet, which will actually be interesting for our league. Week 13, Balso Hardew, Mace's Aces. Those two teams playing for the Eastern Division title, possibly. Saints, Seahawks, Monday night. That'll be a big game in real life, and obviously a big game for the league with the players that are on both teams in that game.
Should be fun.
So we'll be back.
Skeet on your face, Keith.
We'll be back leading into Week 13. Possibly our playoffs might be set. If not, we could have some win and get in games in Week 13 that'll be exciting to discuss, and we'll see what happens. Until then, thanks for joining us inside the Fantasy Hut. We'll hope to see you next time.
All right. Have a good one. Thank you.